Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming and day 3 of RPG A Day. Day 3, the question is, name the character moment of which you are most proud, or which you are proudest, I think it was, in the actual write-up. Now, I could go with Sergio Chang from the Shadowrun game that I talked about yesterday, but instead, what I will talk about is a character by the name of Edwin that I played in a Vampire the Masquerade game in November of last year at IndieCon, a fantastic convention that may sadly no longer be running on the south coast. It has been replaced with a convention by the name of Contingency, which we'll speak about more in another video. Now, in this Vampire the Masquerade game, and it was such a joy to be able to play Vampire, to be honest, given that I'm generally running it. We were playing Alastors. Alastors are Camarilla appointed, I suppose, hunters, assassins, bounty hunters, the kinds of vampires that hunt down other vampires on the Red List, which is a Camarilla appointed FBI most wanted list, I guess, for the most dangerous kindred and canites in existence. Not necessarily Sabbat vampires, but infernalists and independent creatures that pose a very real threat to the traditions and specific clans. Now, Edwin, the character that I was playing, was a, I suppose, Old West style sheriff, or at least styled himself as one. He wore the correct hat. He was a man in black, wore shades. And I very much styled him on Matthew McConaughey as Killer Joe in terms of the way he acted, very much like a snake in waiting. And I also made Edwin a fervent Camarilla loyalist. His most common phrase, I said it repeatedly during the course of the Chronicle, because we played 3 sessions of this game over the course of the convention, was Camarilla first, Coterie second, Clan third. And he absolutely believed in the ideals of the Camarilla. The ivory tower must stand, and it wouldn't have stood for so long if it was doing things wrong. It was clearly needed, otherwise it wouldn't exist. And during the course of this Chronicle, and I really enjoyed playing this Gangrel, Edwin, during the course of the Chronicle, we came up against the number 1 on the Red List, Kemintiri, the baddest of the bad, a 4th generation Setite, who has been on the Red List since its inception, if I recall. And part of the game had us trying to work out how do you take down a vampire that hard. We ended up actually speaking with the dead via some Giovanni contacts that we managed to sell territory to in Canary Wharf in London in order to get an audience with some of the Anziani in Venice and actually speak to some of the spirits that Kemintiri had contact with in her mortal days in order to find out what her weakness was. And as it transpired, the only way you could weaken Kemintiri to a state at which you could actually kill her was if she had just sated herself on pure blood. Not as in the blood of a highly powerful canite, but essentially virginal blood, the blood of someone who was absolutely innocent of everything that could ever be deemed sinful. Now, this is a tall order by any stretch, but we had good intel on where Kemintiri was, and so we needed to feed her this blood. This would, of course, pose a massive humanity risk, and our coterie, which was split fairly evenly down the middle, 2 of us were quite prepared to make that sacrifice, myself included, and 2 of us were not. Now, one of the characters that was not, a Toreador by the name of Christine, who believed that she was Christine Daae of Phantom of the Opera and that her sire was the Phantom, whether he was or not, was a matter, I suppose, of some debate, but he certainly appeared to be. She was an incredibly hopeful, charitable, friendly, and generally good character. Far too good for the world that we had put her in. She had pretty much joined the Alastors by a measure of bad luck. She had accidentally killed a member of a vampire on the Red List, and when we later killed another vampire on the Red List, we basically attributed it to her so that she was stuck with us. We weren't terribly good to her, but she was always trying to find the best in us, and my character had a paternal relationship with her, I guess. I was often looking out for her, and she was often deferring to me, or Edwin, for knowledge on the Camarilla, the sects, the anathema that we were hunting down, and so on. Now, in advance of Edwin and his two coterie mates, Christine and a Tremere, whose name temporarily I forget, heading to Chicago, where we had tracked Kemintiri. The other vampire in favour of the pureblood sacrifice, another toreador by the name of Jackie Lacey, a real salesman, Don Draper type of madman, I guess, adman, went ahead, unbeknownst to the rest of the coterie. We told the rest of the coterie that Jackie was going ahead to introduce us to Prince Lodin and ensure that we weren't treading on any Camarilla toes. What actually happened was I spoke to Jackie and said, what you've got to do is kidnap a child from an orphanage and sacrifice this child, feed it to Kemintiri's serpent to weaken Kemintiri, and then we'll be able to kill her. This ruse got discovered, and there was a massive race to get to the location where Kemintiri was, and pretty much throwing this baby around like a hot potato, this orphan child that we deemed would be the only sacrifice that we could make with as little loss to connected parties as possible, although we obviously knew out of character this would make our humanity take a hit. The baby was actually saved, and this left us facing a massive serpent, a vampire snake, I suppose, of impossible generation and general power levels. Kemintiri's chief servant that we needed to feed this child to. The child was gone, the child was saved, and so at the crucial moment, Edwin, my character, decided to sacrifice Christine. Now it's worth noting that we played these 3 sessions at IndieCon. We also played 3 sessions at Conception, which is another role-playing convention around, I guess, 10 months prior. It's usually around in January, February, and so we played 3 sessions there. We played 3 sessions at IndieCon, so I played with this character in pretty deep sessions in short bursts for a while, and so it was quite a sacrifice to make, but it was a brilliant scene where I basically had to reiterate Camarilla first, coterie second, and ultimately Christine was in the coterie and Kemintiri was an opponent, an enemy of the Camarilla, and she was pure, proven when she could tell what I was about to do, and she essentially martyred herself, she volunteered herself for sacrifice, and the sacrifice was made, Kemintiri was weakened, and we emerged triumphant, but at a huge cost. On the plus side, I became Prince of London. But anyway, that is my in-character moment of which I'm most proud, and thank you very much for watching. I will see you for day 4.